Hi everybody, I'm Susan Mulvihill. Welcome back to the fourth installment in my series called You Grew It, What to Do With It. And in it I've been explaining how we store different types of crops and then some fun things that you can do to use them in cooking. Today's topic is onions, shallots, and garlic, and I've got all kinds of great tips to share with you. I always like to share a growing tip with you, and I've got a great one that applies to all three of today's vegetables. And that is to add bone meal to your soil before you plant onions, shallots, or garlic. That's because bone meal is high in phosphorus, and phosphorus promotes good root development. So if you've ever had problems with onions not forming a good bulb, that's the problem. So be sure to add it to your soil at planting time, and it will make all the difference in how the plants grow. The other tip I wanted to share with you is something quite unusual, and it just applies to onions, but I thought I would share it today. So did you know that there's such a thing as short day, intermediate day, and long day onion varieties? So what this means is there are certain types of varieties that do better in certain regions of the country. And so I want to show you a really interesting resource online so I can explain how this works. The Dixondale Farms website is a great resource for this information. They sell all sorts of onion plants, and because of this, they have great information that you can refer to in order to choose the right variety based on your region's daylight hours during the summer. So if you go to dixondalefarms.com and click on Shop and then Onion Plants, you'll get a map of the country, and it will show you whether you're in the short day area, intermediate day, or long day. Look at all of the area of the US that's in the long day onion area. So I'm going to click on long day because that applies to me. And what you get is a list of all different kinds of varieties that do well in that region. Now I want to take it one step further because this applies to storage, which I'm going to talk about next. So one of the varieties of onions we're growing is Ailsa Craig, and it's not a lady's name, it's actually the name of an island off of Scotland. So I'm going to click on that information, and one of the things you can see in here is, first of all, size potential up to 6 pounds, which is insane, and storage potential approximately 1 month. So the reason I wanted to show this is that it's important that you know how long your onion variety will keep in storage. So obviously something that's only going to keep for about a month is an onion that you need to use up first before you use other varieties, if you did grow them, that perhaps store for a longer period of time. Now, if you live in the long day region of the country and you're looking for an onion that keeps a lot longer in storage, I heartily recommend Patterson. We have grown this onion. It is great. And look at the storage potential, 8 to 10 months. Wow. So of course, if we were growing Pattersons and the Ailsa Craig, we would want to use up the Ailsa Craig first and then switch over to the Pattersons. Okay, let's talk about how we store onions, shallots, and garlic. And for us, it's a two-stage process. I just wanted to quickly explain that at harvest time, we moved the onions, shallots, and garlic into a shed. And the goal was to let their stalks and the outer skin completely dry. So we clipped off the stalks at that time, and then we boxed these up and moved them into our garage where we are right now. So for example, here is a Zebrun shallot. This is a red of Florence onion, believe it or not. And this is one of our Ailsa Craig onions. I believe Bill has already moved the garlic into our basement. Right now, our garage is insulated, but it's not heated. And at the moment, it's a chilly 46 degrees Fahrenheit. When the temperatures drop down to the upper 30s, we will move the onions and shallots into our basement as well, where it's definitely a more stable temperature, maybe about 48 to 50 degrees Fahrenheit. Yep, I was right. Here's the garlic down in the basement. Some are a smaller type, and here's some more. So we're in good shape in the garlic department. So what can you do with these 3 tasty crops? Well, I probably don't even need to tell you because they add so much flavor and another dimension to all kinds of savory dishes. You can really add them to just about anything. But I do have 2 things I want to share with you today. And the first is how to make pickled onions. And then I'll show you something that we make using those pickled onions. I'm going to make 3 pints of pickled onions, so you need some type of a container with lids, and the canning jars work really well for us. For ingredients, you need vinegar. I'm going to use apple cider vinegar, but you could also use white vinegar or a combination of white vinegar and red wine vinegar, sugar, pickling salt, garlic cloves, and then some type of sweet onions. I'm going to use our Red of Florence onions, but any type of sweet onion will do. The first thing I want to do is mix the brine together. So that requires 1½ cups of vinegar, 1 cup of water, 1/4 cup of granulated sugar, and a tablespoon of pickling salt. I've got a whisk here. I'm just going to whisk it for a moment so that the sugar and salt dissolve. And then I'll keep this on a low simmer while I'm chopping the onions. Okay, so each of these jars is a pint size, which means it holds 2 cups. And ironically enough, each jar requires about 2 cups of onions. So when you have put them into the jar, just use something to tamp them down a little bit, because you'll be surprised and discover that even more will fit in there. Next, you want to add a slice or 2 of garlic into each jar. Now you can add in your vinegar brine. And the best thing you can do is to add a little bit to a jar, and then to the next one, and to the next one. I'm being messy. And go ahead and top them off so that the brine is up to the top of the jar. If you come up a little bit short, it's okay to add some water to the top. Screw on the lids. And then just set them aside on the counter and let them cool down a bit. Once they've cooled down, you can put them in your refrigerator. And believe it or not, you can actually use them in 4 hours. But they will keep in your refrigerator for up to 2 weeks. I don't think ours have ever lasted that long because we have so much fun putting it into salads and other dishes. Now stay tuned, because I'm going to come right back in 4 hours and I'm going to show you how to make the tastiest green bean salad ever. Well, I told you I was going to make a green bean salad, but this is actually going to be a green and yellow bean salad. So these are top crop, and these ones are Vortex, which is my all-time favorite pole bean. And during the growing season, I picked and froze these. The method I use for freezing these beans is called blanching, and that's where you boil them for 3 minutes, and then you put them in cold water to cool down, and then you can freeze them. So because these have already cooked for a few minutes, I only need to cook them about 4 minutes more. The Then I want to drain them in a colander. Then I like to wrap them in a tea towel just to dry off a little bit of that moisture. Now I'm putting them into a dish. And I don't worry that they're still hot because that actually will help the beans absorb more of the dressing. Now it's time for those pickled onions. And I just do this by sight. I don't really measure them, but I want a nice mix with the beans. That's probably about right. Now it's time to make the dressing. And if you've seen some of my previous videos in this series, you've already seen the recipe for making our famous mustard dressing. The things that you will need are a light olive oil or regular olive oil, depending upon your preference, balsamic vinegar, stone ground Dijon mustard, a little bit of granulated sugar, and a pinch of salt. As far as the proportions go, since I kind of just make it by sight, is that you want 3 parts oil to 1 part vinegar. And then maybe about 3 or 4 squirts of Dijon. And the rest is just a little bit. This is going to seem like a whole lot of dressing, but that's a whole lot of beans. Okay, maybe 6 squirts. And a couple pinches. Mix it all together. Pour the dressing over the beans. And mix everything together. I'm going to snap a lid on this dish and put it in the refrigerator and let everything cool down. And what's going to happen is that the beans and the onions are going to marinate in that mustard dressing. And oh, it is just the best combination. I hope you enjoyed today's video. Thanks so much for watching, everybody. I'll see you next week.